Welcome back, everybody. My name is Paul, the country realtor. I live in the western part of Virginia near Lexington, and I love homesteading. And today's Saturday morning, getting close to spring here in the late part of February. And I want to talk to you a little bit about space and using space and living a little smaller because it's a big subject these days. A lot of people in the world, they live already in very small spaces. If you've traveled a lot, like I have, a place like India and Thailand, you'd be surprised how small the houses are, especially in a small country like Thailand where there's really not that much room for these large estates. Now, I've been a realtor for some years and I spend a lot of time looking at homes and seeing properties and looking at land and all that, and also live in the country. So I know a little bit about living in the country and space, and I want to talk a little bit about a real big trend right now, which is the small homes, the tiny homes, and basically just living small. Because essentially, the history of this country and many countries already is just they start small. They have small farms, little families, and so on, and little by little they grow. And maybe there are people who have a property all their lives, and that's the only property they have their whole lives, and they just work it. And I've been to some of those kind of countries. Maybe the family owns 40 acres or 20 acres or whatever, and they just keep working it, and they bring the animals, and they have a little livelihood there. So the thing is that life in the country, space is at a premium. First of all, you got to build a space. So if you have a lot of toys or little things to store and keep track of, whatever, you're going to need more space. You're going to need a bigger house, bigger shed, bigger garage, everything big. So people in the countryside slowly but surely learn. If you look at some of these old houses, you'll see the closets are really small. Today it'd be embarrassment, like that's a closet. And now you have closets as big as a room at some houses. So it's really important actually to think about the space that we use, because you see some of these houses 6,000 square feet and there's 3 people living in it, and it's just absolutely massive, and it's just incredible how much space some of these houses have and how little it's really being used. So people naturally, they go in the house and they say, well, honey, there's a lot of room here. I guess we need some big furniture. And they bring it all in, a big truck, and they have a giant-sized couch and giant-sized TV, and everything's giant. And in the country, you can't do that because, first of all, in the countryside, when you're doing a homestead, you have things to spend your money on besides big furniture. You might have to fix your tractor. So it's a whole different concept of living. And it has to do with economy and simplicity and multiple person uses. And for example, a tractor, you got to have a tractor, but the tractor has many implements and many uses. You can use that tractor for years and years and years and way pay it back. And even after you have it for 20 years, you could probably still sell it as an antique tractor. So a tractor has symbolically a multiple use purpose thing that we use in the country. Now, in the homes, I want to talk a little bit. I have a little bit of list here, and just the way we use space. First of all, I want to share a couple of books with you here, real briefly here. This beautiful book here is written about someone's journey from the city life into the country, and I haven't read the whole thing yet, and it wasn't recent, so maybe 20 years ago or whatever, or maybe she's writing about the time the story actually takes place many years ago, but she wrote it in the last 20 years. But anyway, it's a beautiful little book called The First Person Rural. And related to the things that we have here quickly here about space, just a little bit about geometry. A lot of people already are very savvy about this stuff, but the way space is used, the geometry of our own body, the way that gardens are shaped, the way that, for example, there's a lot of measurements that we think of, like, well, elbow space, elbow room, one personal space. We need a certain amount of room. Like where I'm sitting right now, I've had to go down and trim. What do I need in my workspace here? I don't want anything around here too much that isn't useful, and the things that are useful, I want them very accessible, and I want them hidden, because simple things like this, we have a little container for the pens, and you can have decorations, but I've seen some decorations, some homes, well, I wouldn't want to dust that home. So decorations add some nice visuals and feelings and nostalgia and so on to your home. But when you have too many of them and they get in the way of activity, for example, in some kitchens, in Thailand, for example, you don't see a lot of knickknacks. You see, like, it's a workplace and that's it. And it's work and trash and clean up, and then you go back to your house part and we're all nice and neat and clean and sweet, and you don't have the smell. So the utility space of typically living in the country, especially in a small space, because you might have, like, I live in a fairly small space compared to most people, actually. It's people my age, and deliberately so, because I have more outbuildings. There's a barn here and an antique cottage, which I don't use, just for storage, kind of a log thing, and then a shed where I have my tools. Now again, tools are a whole other subject. Okay, you have to store your tools and make them easily accessible. But again, we're getting into containers and space, and there's a lot of things that you can use. For example, that have multiple purposes. I like boxes, for example. I have pens and things and all these little clutter things that you want to get rid of, and you don't want them to be out, but you need them for certain activities. You can put them in containers and drawers and hanging baskets, bags, hooks, boxes. Sometimes I like to hang a bag on a hook in a closet, so you have the floor space in the closet, and then you put things down there, and then there's all that space up there. So if you hang things on the side of the closet, say, okay, I have shoes, for example, on one side. Okay, well, I don't want my shoes on the floor because they get in the way, and it's just a jumble of shoes. So I find ways to put them in a bag and hang them up on the side of a closet. And when certain shoes I need out of season, I just open that bag and okay, there they are. But meanwhile, they're stored neat. And there's so many things like that. The clutter, all your charging gadgets, all your cords. I have a place in my closet where one hook and all those cords are there. I need a cord? Okay, I know there's 20 of them in the closet. I don't have to look at them every day. See, they're not spread around and tangled up in somewhere. Another thing that you can use is, I like one example of a thing I have a container is it's an old bread box, the kind that have the slider top. And it looks all neat and clean, everything. It has a nice streamlined appearances. This one's made out of metal. And I open it up and I put all my charger stuff in there, my cords, and shut it, boom, out of sight. So the use of space, the use of corners, a lot of people overlook corners. Well, in the old days they didn't. You can see some of those old antique dish cabinets. They say, honey, that's a corner. Build a cabinet to fit in that corner because the ones on the side of the wall take up so much space. But you always have a corner situation where there's corners in any room, and what are you going to do with that space? It's just like you don't really use it much, but if you hang something like a hanging basket, or put a little shelf there, or put a plant in the corner, there's things that you can do. It's basically about moving the energy. And I have this book here, another one I want to share about interior design with Feng Shui. I just got into this book here, and I realized, my God, I should have been learning about Feng Shui all my life. I have a sort of a knack for it, and a sense for it, but there's things, the principles of basically the idea of moving the energy in your house so that the patterns of flow. So when you go in the door, and then where are you going to go after that? Maybe, and a lot of times you go in the door and you right to the kitchen, or there's a big foyer or something. And in a small home on a property where you live in the country and you want to maximize your space, and maybe you have a small home, but you have storage in a barn and so on, everything in your home matters. So what I do, for example, is I have a porch in the back, and the things I do not need and do not need to be kept clean, cold or warm rather, I have my brooms, the mops, those kind of things. They don't need to be in my interior closet in my house. I can put them on the deck and put them somewhere out of the way where rain, shine, whatever. I don't care if they get cold, my brooms. So that kind of stuff, they're dirty anyway. I put them in a place, that is out of the way. Again, living small requires thinking carefully about what clothes you need. I found out after a while that if I'm doing the same thing every day and I'm going outdoors and I'm just doing some garden work, or I'm working at my house inside, I'm doing some paperwork, I don't really need to change my clothes and dress up fancy because I have the regular clothes, the dress clothes that I can use for professional reasons and appointments and so on. But when I'm home hanging out, doing my office work, and I'm sitting at this table here and so on, I don't need to have, all my fancy clothes. So basically, I save on laundry, sort of a little secret of working at home. You can work in your pajamas and nobody will know. So again, using various kinds of attractive boxes. We have to store stuff, so you can find attractive things in antique stores and flea markets that maybe they were the container for some product that was sold years ago, or I use sometimes these old cans, and they used to hold buttons in them. And in the old days, they had these decorative kind of cake pans and so on. And they make them now, but they're not as cute as the older ones. I have one that's maybe from the 50s, and when I got it had buttons in it, and now I use it for something else. And it's just a really interesting case where I can put some things that I need, and they're all in there, and I just put it away, and I don't have to worry about things getting lost. So again, when you have a closet, in a closet you can have, or a cabinet you might say, you can have containers of different kinds. I, for example, when I have my rice and those kind of things for food, I put them in open containers and clear containers on the top of my refrigerator so I can see them. I don't have to fish for them. I know exactly what's there, and some of them have nice colors. You know, they're on the top of the refrigerator. It's basically open wasted space. I throw them up there, and they look attractive, and it's all functioning, and I'm not wasting that space on top of the refrigerator. So again, using space. There's a lot of space in people's homes that they look up and say, well, I put a little shelf above my sink, for example. I can't see it in this video, but I noticed that above my kitchen sink there's a space up there, and there's a bunch of corners. So I put in one corner, I put a cabinet, a triangular cabinet like the one back here, something similar, and take up that space and use it for a shelf. And then I found another place way up the top, and nothing was there. I put a little shelf up there, and now I can put some of the things that attractive items that I use, packages and so on up there, and they're out of the way, but they also kind of look attractive, and they don't take up my cabinet space. So there's many things that you can do in terms of finding various kinds of containers, bags, things. And I have, for example, there's outdoor work. If I go out on my ATV and explore property, I have certain things I want to carry with me. I have my knife and matches, maybe some band-aids and a few other things like that, some measurement tools. And I have them already in a bag, and so when I need that thing, okay, I grab that, throw it over my shoulder, and I have everything I need. And meanwhile, I don't have to have a separate space for all the little things, a place for the knife, and a place for the measuring tape, and a place for this and that. I put them all in one place, so when I'm going to use them, I tend to use them together, and put them in one place. And then, I tell you what, having a place for things makes a big difference, especially when you really need something. If you're really working, like you work at home, and you say, oh man, there's times when I think, why can't I find a pen? I should be able to find a pen within 2 seconds in my house. If I can't find a pen, I'm wasting my time looking around the house for a rubber band or a pen or something like that. That's a waste of time. So now I have places around my house that I know if I need a pen or a pencil, I can have it in 2 seconds. Like you want to write a phone number down. So a lot of a strategy about using your space and being a little clever about how the house is laid out. And I want to talk a little more about that in the future episodes, because it is a big thing now. A lot of people are moving from the city, and if you've had training in the city and you've been living in the city, believe me, you know how to use the space, because some people use their ovens for bookshelves. In some places, they turn off the oven, they don't just go out to eat. So when you move to the country, you have all this space. The tendency is, oh man, now I got so much space. And you can see some of these properties that, yeah, they've been living there for a long time and they got so much space, but now it's filled with old tractors and refrigerators and everything like that. So it's all like how you use space. So if you have good training from living in the city and you know how to use space pretty well, then when you go out to the countryside, you start using it a little differently, but at least you have the principles down. So I love suggestions. I like to see people's other video, and I watch a lot of other people's content, and sometimes I make comments on them. And thanks again for sharing. I like hearing from the visitors and hearing what you have to say and your experiences homesteading. So again, I'm Paul. I'm a country realtor. I live in the western part of Virginia near Lexington, and I'm a big fan of homesteading. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.